in this particular video, I am going to be talking about the iPad 2 that I downgraded to iOS 6, as well as this iPhone 4S that I also downgraded to iOS 6. Both of these devices were running 9.3.5, and they are now both running iOS 6.3.1. 6.1.3. There we go. I downgraded this one back in January, and I did a video on it, and then I downgraded this just recently to iOS 6. I didn't do a video on this, but if you want to downgrade your iPhone, just watch my iPad video. It works exactly the same way. It's very, very simple. You just download the iPhone 4S firmware instead of the iPad one. Very, very easy to do. I personally use this iPhone 4S as my daily driver on iOS 6. You can see it's iOS 6. I used my iPhone 4S here on iOS 6 personally for about a week. And I am answering what it's actually like to live with iOS 6 for roughly a week as more or less my primary operating system. The number one thing is, if you have been using an iPhone for a very long time, you're going to feel right at home, and you're going to kind of at first get nostalgic because you get all those old icons back. You may remember these from the good old days, as I call them, of iOS. This is back when all of the firmware was clean and polished and fast. Like, it's very fast and fluid. And I just want to show you how fast things load. So let's switch around to a desk view real quick. All right, so we're looking at these two iPads kind of side by side right now. This one's obviously on iOS 6. This one's on iOS 11. So I'm going to try to open up a couple of applications at the same time just to give you a little glimpse at how fast it is. So if I just hit the calendar on both, you'll see it's not too far behind over here on iOS 6. And again, both of these iPads have applications running in the background, and I'm not going to close those applications because in the real world, chances are you'll have applications running in the background. Let's do notes. Wow, this one loaded faster, actually. So that was kind of surprising. How about we open up reminders briefly? Let's open up reminders. So you'll see it's almost the same speed. It's very fast to open up anything. Even the cameras launch relevantly quickly. So they launch very fast, very easy. It's great. It's really very fluid. And no matter what it is you're doing with it, it just launches and works very, very well. So speed and performance is not really an issue. If anything, I've noticed that the speed was just a little bit different going from here to here, and it's almost unperceivably different when you're using just the iPad 2 by itself. Like, it's fairly quickly. Granted, I was only opening up some stock applications, and this wasn't like a thorough test, but it opens up applications pretty quickly. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the iPhone 4S and what it's like to use the iPhone 4S on iOS 6 as your primary device. So a few things I noticed is, yes, you can't run the most recent version of all of the apps. So you may find some older versions, but you can still run quite a bit of the apps without any problems. It's just not the most recent version, so you'll miss a few features that you may be accustomed to. But I was able to get a copy of Netflix onto here. I was able to get YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Here's the problem. Here's the number one thing that I found was a problem with this. There's a few social apps that if you are using these social media apps, you're going to run into some issues. Facebook Messenger no longer works with iOS 6. For whatever reason, it just doesn't. So you cannot use Facebook Messenger on iOS 6. Kinda sucks. If you use Facebook Messenger, you can't get your messages on iOS 6 on any device. It's just not a thing. You can't access it within the Facebook app. You can't download the Messenger software. It just doesn't work. You can access it through Safari, but that's kind of a pain, and I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. Same goes for Snapchat. You can download the physical Snapchat app, but you cannot sign in to Snapchat on iOS 6, so you will not be able to Snapchat on iOS 6 if that is something that you were hoping to do with your iPhone 4S on iOS 6, you can't. You can do it on iPhone 4S as if you're running iOS 9. Actually, a lot of these problems is based on the software, not the hardware. iOS 9 is much more capable of doing things, and you can definitely upgrade both of these to iOS 9, but that defeats the purpose of this video. Instagram is great. The Instagram application, you can still access everything, but if people post groups of photos, like they'll post 2-3 photos at a time, so you can only see the first photo. So you can share up to 10 photos at a time on Instagram. Well, you can't do that on the Instagram app for iOS 6. It just won't let you do it. And a great feature on the latest version of Instagram is you can just go up to the username and click on it, and it'll pull up all of the accounts associated with that app that you've logged into, and you can just hop back and forth between all your different accounts that you own. You cannot do that on the old version. You have to sign out and sign back in. So it's one extra step, but I just found that a little annoying. However, I gotta say, you can use pretty much all of the stock applications with no problem. The phone app works just fine. The messages app works just fine. I got every text message on this phone, no problem. It didn't give me any issues with that. You can still check the weather. You can still download apps. You can still download music. Obviously, you can't use Apple Music. You just get whatever you download. Apple Music is iOS 8. iOS 8 and 9. 8.4.1 was Apple Music. So you can upgrade this to that, but again, defeats the purpose of what we're talking about today. Another thing with the iPhone 4S is you get Siri. Hello, Siri.
Greetings.
What can I say? It works as it's intended to. And iOS 6, I want to say Siri was like ahead of the competition. And if you look at like Google's software now, Siri's kind of fallen behind. I still use Siri every now and again, but a lot of what you can do with Siri in iOS 6 is the same stuff you can do now, and it really hasn't improved any. So it's really, really good on iOS 6. It's almost like you haven't lost any features. The only thing you can't do is ask it to change the brightness. So if you want to like change the brightness, lower the brightness.
If you update to the latest version of iOS.
So you can do that with the newer versions of iOS. That was an iOS 7 feature. If you want to change the brightness, you can ask Siri. You can't ask Siri on iOS 6. But you can, however, ask Siri to launch applications. Open the camera. And it launches the camera just like that. It's really, really simple. It's super easy to open up applications with Siri. You can do just about anything with Siri that you can now. You can ask it about restaurants. You can ask it about movies. So like, what movies are playing?
Let me have a look.
It still takes her a while to think. She's still slow. But you can see the movies that are playing. You can do quite a bit with Siri on here. It's definitely Siri. You're going to lose a few of the nice features that you get with later versions of iOS, specifically the control center. If that doesn't bother you, okay. But here's one of the things that I just want to mention. On the iPhone 4S, if you want to change the brightness, you have to go into settings. If you do it on the iPad and you downgrade and you want to change your brightness, you can actually double-click the home button, which this is the easiest way. You can double-click the home button and you can change the brightness in the multitasking tray. You cannot do that on the iPhone 4S. So you're going to lose your quick brightness, you're going to lose your quick camera toggles, you're going to lose all that. Long story short, this is definitely a very usable device. I really enjoyed using it for a couple of days. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's almost impossible to live with the iPhone 4S. I've seen a couple of these videos where they say the iPhone 4S should not be used in 2017. I think it takes a special kind of person to want to use it. So if you're the kind of person that's watching this video, you're probably the kind of person that would enjoy using iOS 6 in 2018. So yes, downgrade your device. I think you'll have a good time with it. And if all else fails, if you really, really don't like it and you lose a lot of features with it, just go back to iOS 9. Also, it would be my best guess that if you are downgrading your iPhone 4S, it's not your primary phone. My primary phone is an iPhone 10. That's the phone I use all the time. This phone was just a fun little experiment for me. It's not my main phone. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up and I will see you in the next one.